Okay, welcome to the Board of Directors meeting on March 19th, 2025. We have a moderate-sized agenda today. So the first thing is, would we like to read the meeting minutes of the last meeting?
Second.
Perfect, amazing. Let's do that. Here we are, the meeting minutes from the last meeting that happened on February 20th at 6:30 p.m. We had first a short little mini meeting to do the transfer of the bank account and removing Elizabeth and putting on Leon. Then we had a second
Yep.
meeting at 6:45 p.m. Um, and then we read the meeting minutes from the previous meeting. I'm not going to go back to those as well. Final fog documentation came out, and getting added to the inventory. We completed. President and Liz completed a previous list. That's not. Oh, liaison. Yes. So previously, Dash and I, Ginger, Conrad and I went and did an entire update on all of the assets we have in the Westmarch trailer. Um, then there was a question about the discrepancy potentially in funding, and we looked at the attendance data. And then we decided to table this until next month, which would be this month, in order to allow time for auditing of the records. There was then a question brought up about whether or not the BoD had any enforcement power or if they even wanted to do any enforcement because the records were due within 45 days of the end of the event, and this was well beyond that, and it was decided that the BoD did not have that power, and we pushed it to the Kingdom Monarch to make it their issue. Second item was the Westmarch feedback of the March Alding, which we decided to push. Okay, I don't understand these meeting minutes. And so we've decided to, this is the insurance incident. So whether or not we wanted insurance, what level of insurance, and this was a task that was given to the liaison and to talk about this month. Then should we have an emergency management plan? We have previously decided we don't think it's necessary, but Milan, Brian Ouellette, keeps going that they want to write one. So I'm going to keep adding it to the agenda until they tell me to stop. Then we had a new incident form, the new JOT form, that is now up and running. As a quick reminder to people, this is a general incident report form. So if something like, say, happens in an event, somebody breaks an ankle or something like that, like this is a good way to write it down. It's just like a universal way to capture information in case it comes back up later. We have a different form for COC investigations. We then have the Westmarch audit form, and there was one was written, and then there was a thing about making an Alding item for it, which we will talk about today. Then 501c3 update was given out by Brian, who was busy dealing with a bunch of fun stuff with the IRS. And then we had a lovely discussion about the various rules that we're going to have to start following once we become 501c3, for fundraising and things like that, which we spent a good half hour on. We then talked about that the taxes are due May 15th of this year. And then item number 8 was a budget proposal for the annual budget and what we need. And then we reaffirmed, I should say, our DEI statement, and that got posted. And then we voted to discuss when to have the next meeting, which is this meeting. Are there any questions on previous meeting minutes? Okay, can I go ahead and close them?
Second.
Yes.
Cool. Okay, item number 1, which is the most important one here. Hey, Monarch, you providing attendance credits for today's meeting?
Yes, I am. I apologize.
Perfect.
I'm also catching up on now 2 months of messages because I'm finally able to open Messenger again.
Huzzah!
Woot!
Okay. Uh, okay. Let's see. Then that finishes item number 1, unless anybody has anything. For people who want attendance, please drop your AMP card name into the chat. Oh, and we should probably actually also give location, now that I think about it. Whatever, I'll deal with that later. Okay. Next item number 2. Royce, I believe you had the lead on this, which was the FOG final documents. This is an action held over from last month. we're looking at the audit and whether the numbers add up or any discrepancies we might have had.
Yep, I am still looking at this. I have it open right now and I'm looking at it. And for the life of me, I cannot figure out where this money came from. All I can think is it's an issue of like maybe dues or something got transferred in with it.
Oh, you're talking about the money in the account and how it doesn't line up with the money
Yeah,
in the fog documentation?
yes. Sorry, that's further down, isn't it? Or
No, it's all kind of
the fog,
part of
yeah, the fog
this.
documentation was all there. It's all there, everything now. We have receipts for everything. It's just a matter at this point of figuring out that difference in the account.
Our Because CIM card transfers it all in as PayPal payments, and so it'd be every individual person as a PayPal
Oh,
payment.
that's in the perpetual ledger. I have that open right now, looking
Yeah, yeah,
at it.
yeah. But then you're saying that like the number total adds up to a number we weren't expecting because there's additional money
So
there.
what's left in the fog account after fog were this 400 and well, it's now 438 higher than what we should be. So I'm trying to figure out where that is. That's kind of unrelated to the fog. That's a bank issue. But fog itself, all the receipts have been provided, everything's been reimbursed, it's done. I would like it done faster for the next events.
Yeah. 438 is a very odd
Yeah,
number.
yeah.
Okay. Is there anything else for us to do here? Or
Nope.
okay, are we needing to discuss this again next month? Or
Nope.
okay, shall we close this item and move along?
Second.
Perfect.
Motion to close that item.
Cool. We probably don't need to have a full roll call vote on that. We probably just anybody opposed? Okay, moving along. Okay, dokie. Item number 3, proposed budget. Also back to you, Royce. You're like half of these today.
Yeah, I know I'm a bunch of these. Did you guys look at the proposed budget I sent?
I did.
Do you have any objections to does anybody have any objections to the proposed budget that was sent?
Oh, I should probably have downloaded and read that real fast.
Yeah, probably.
There's a couple changes from last year on here. Um, we have the trailer contract on here now, and we have Zoom on here, and then iPostal went up a little bit.
Yeah. Okay, let me pull up that budget and then resume sharing. Said resume sharing. Perfect. Okay, so here's the budget proposal. I believe this is the newest one that we had in our chat. So the starting balance, um, this balance needs to be. Wait, is this balance the general account balance?
That's all of the balances combined, I want to say.
Okay, you're
Could-
missing one of the accounts. There are 4 accounts on our account.
Yes, that's not accounts though. If you look, that's the starting balance. That's our cash and all the accounts. Then we have expected income of member dues, Dark Shore, Feast.
Gotcha. This is our income or expected.
Yes,
revenue.
that's our finger quotes expected income.
Gotcha. Okay, now I understand. Okay.
So I did this one a little different than we've done in the past. For Feast of Gods here for 25, I estimated it as a break even instead of losing money like we did in 24. In the past, it's always been based on the previous year's event, but I don't estimate losing money because that's bad business.
Okay.
But also cost of living.
Yeah, but we shouldn't estimate on losing money on our events. We should estimate to
Valid.
break even.
Valid.
Yeah.
So that's what I did for this one. And then Dark Shore, I estimated the income based off of last year's.
Last year we were extra profitable. It was actually one of our higher income amounts over the year. I almost feel like maybe we should do like a rolling average on this or something like that. Because like
Probably.
3 years ago, I think we were like within $12. Is what it was. Like we basically broke even. And then like the year
Yeah.
before that, we were up like a little, like maybe it was like $800 or $1,000 something like that.
At the end of this year, when I prepare next year's, so if I don't end up being the treasurer again, um, I'm going to prepare it using a rolling average of like 5 years.
Yeah.
That way we can get kind of the best look at it, even though we're trending down on attendance for the last few years.
Yeah.
Web hosting's the same. Google storage is the same because there's no updated anything on it. But I saw our annual payment is the same. iPostal went up this year because we didn't have the coupon. Is a long story. Zoom is 160, so we don't have to rely on some person's individual Zoom. So we can just get one assigned to the Westmarch email. The estimated cost for Darkshore was last year's. The estimated cost for Feast was last year's. And then there's these feasts, all these feasts and scrolls that are on here. I just copied from the previous year, so there's budgetary for that. And then the trailer contract for it's $12.
Yeah.
Big expense.
Hey, we got to account for it. I think there is one other expense that's not on here that I was a little surprised popped up last year, which was in September we have to renew our website certification.
Okay. The server itself.
Yeah. So like we have like the server hosting fees and then we have like the certification. Otherwise the cert dies. I can't remember what the number is off the top of my head. I know it got paid out last year because I worked with, I think it was you, James, at the time, right? To pay that out, and it was just like a credit card cover. Uh,
I seem to recall it was $25, and I believe Thistledown was treasurer at the time.
Yeah. I'm sure we could look it up. It's probably in our bank statements. It should have been around, it was like late August, early September, sometime in there.
Sorry, was looking away. What was the question?
The certification we had to redo to renew our website certs. I remember that was an additional fee. It popped up at like September-ish.
Yes. Zeus is the one who actually paid it, and then I reimbursed him. But it was small.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it was just like, it was like another little thing that I remember. We should just grab that, just throw it on here, just so that way we know. But yeah, I do think it was like less than $100. It was like $60 or something like that.
Whenabouts was it?
It was in September. Yeah, Lee or Jackson, you could also probably see it in the email. Because what I ended up doing is I ended up setting up for that company that it forwards those emails to the IT team. So that way they know that their webpage is about to be, to go down, and we can arrange to get it paid.
Okay.
I don't see anything in here in the general ledger,
Lee, you're breaking up. We can't understand you.
but I can find it in the bank. Yeah.
I'm looking at that, or that's a little bit back.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, so this is all there. So we've got all of the various expenses. Just so people are aware, $300. It's about $65 nominally for a scroll. Some scrolls are more expensive, some scrolls are less expensive. Some people donate them, but roughly that's kind of what we're looking at here as far as those expenses. The feasts, that's roughly about right. Those are kind of day feasts. And then you said you estimated the Feast of Gods event cost.
I
based
used
upon
last year's actual expenses
Yeah.
there. I estimated the income at the same because of that.
Yeah.
I just changed 23 to 24 on these notes over here for most everything, and I took out the inappropriate note about our Amcard International.
There is that. Oh, there it is, the international payment. Oh, yes. Now I understand. Okay. Does anybody else have any other things on here that we may have missed? Have any other questions?
Floor doesn't recognize any responses.
Okay. So I think the plan here is push this back up, just like as an Alding thing to kind of approve this, just that way we have these, approved for the year. And then we don't have to have a bunch of individual votes whenever these little things come up. Most of the stuff end up coming out of discretionary spending, but I still think it's good to just publish the overalls so that way anybody in the kingdom is aware of them.
And I
So-
updated that $100 I set it as $100 for the website certification.
Okay, perfect. And we'll get a better estimate on that at some point, but roughly, sure. Sounds good. Okay, do we have any other items to talk about on this topic?
No responses.
Perfect. So, budget reviewed. Okay, perfect. And we can move on to the next topic, I believe, which is the Westmarch audit form. So I uploaded the Westmarch audit form to our BoD wiki page. I also took some time to go ahead and update our wiki page. So for those who don't know, the wiki page is wiki.amcar.com, and then you can just type in Westmarch BoD, and it takes you directly to our wiki page. Well, when you click on it,
What a great page.
it's an amazing great
so
page.
full of information.
It is. I've been trying to figure out how to update this Prime Minister thing, by the way, Ben, because this actually pulls from the Westmarch page, Westmarch wiki page, and the Westmarch wiki page pulls it from some source that I can't find from.
I'll take care of it for you.
Yeah. But yeah, so I resorted this page a little bit we have our BoD process documents, which includes our BoD handbook. I highly recommend everybody takes a look at the BoD handbook. It has all of the things for, well, the BoD and, various costs and, our EIN and our official address and all of those fun things. Our tax statement documents are here. Payment request form is here. Safety statements, DEI statements, all of these fun jazz. We now have the incident report form on here as well as our COC complaint form. And we have our post-event review form, which was that form that we just talked about here, which if I click on it, it will take you to the CA Amcard page where it is hosted, so you can download it and work on it. So that's been done. I have also written a Corpora amendment here for April. Which one? This is where it is. Which is talking about the text to remove. So right now there are 2 blocks of text in the Corpora, one in each section for Feast of Gods and one for Darkshore. Both say that, this information has to be turned over to the Westmarch Prime Minister in 45 days. The proposal is to replace those with a section a little bit higher up. It's actually one section up in just the general Westmarch section. And it says that the event autocrat shall submit a completed post-event review form to the Kingdom Prime Minister and the Board of Directors within 45 days. And then there's just a note here saying that, if other numbers change when we're doing other Alding items, that, this number will be updated. Then it links to the Westmarch post-event review form so everybody can see it. And then there is the reasoning behind it in order to be in compliance. Okay. So that is that. Are there any questions on this?
Just to interrupt, Lord Cinderil, do you have a wiki page yet?
No, not that I'm aware of.
Okay, cool. I'll just make sure that there's not a red link then. All right, thank you.
Does anyone else have anything further?
No.
Perfect.
Floor is yours, Prez.
Yay. Okay, directors and officers of insurance. I'm going to look over at Ginger. This is an item from last month's. Continuing on now for a hot second, looking at different options for insurance.
Yep. We are working with one company that you was passed on to me. I'm still pending a quote from them. Sebastian worked up a nice little document for us to put up on the all thing, and that's where we're at. Just waiting on the company.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so I kind of threw together this simple, just like Alding document. So this has been, a lot of what we've been talking about, and I tried to distill it down to simple bullet points that can be relatively quickly understood. Um, this original directors and officers of insurance, I pulled this from the $700 right here. This is because there's one of the web pages that Ben has previously found for us, talking about insurance for nonprofits within California, and they say that you can get, they offer D&O for nonprofits in the $700 range per year. Then, looking around at some other places through the California nonprofit webpage, which is a very helpful webpage for various nonprofits within California. They had a couple of other people that they worked with for D&O. I reached out to a few of them. One of them reached back. I sent that information along to our liaison to fill out and try and get the relevant information for us. So that would be like with the $700 roughly per year, or whatever the other number comes back in for D&O insurance. Then we also have talked about the fact that we were constantly spending money for event insurance. Right now we spend about $900 per year. It's about $450 per event. We do 2 events. So we spend about $900 a year just to cover the insurance, which is the liability insurance to use the event sites. There's been talked about previously by this board of directors about whether or not we should just get insurance for the whole year that would also cover these event sites and make sure that works. And we went and we looked up a couple of different options for that. So the first one would be just basic event insurance. This would cover for all events during the year. So if somebody is at, Quixotic Valley and, they're playing Amp and they fall in a gopher hole and decide to, come after us, we would have some level of liability insurance.
So I got a quick story about that. I
Yes.
have a coworker that does Little League, and their Little League last year, one of the kids broke their arm, and the kid's health insurance made the parents try to see if the Little League's insurance would cover it first.
Awesome. So, yes,
Capitalism's great.
capitalism's great. So this is just the basic event insurance, and as I note here, this must be bundled with one of the 2 liability insurance, or must be bundled with a liability insurance, I should say. So the liability insurance, I originally had 2 different forms of liability insurance on here. One was $1 million, the other one was a $5 million. I ended up pulling the $5 million off because, well, it really made this price very unreasonable. And the other thing about it was something else, and I'm blanking on it, whatever it was right now. The $1 million insurance is what King City asks for, and so and is the default for most events, event sites within California. Some other places will sometimes ask for higher. If we use those, we can reevaluate. Maybe we have to get an additional extended coverage, but that's kind of the idea. So this tied the event insurance above. Most sites want $1 million. This would cover the average thing. We currently pay about $900 a year. This, because it would cover us for the whole year, is about $1,400. So it is a bit more. We then have some additional add-on options. One of them is accident coverage, which pays the medical bills of an injured party, up to $10,000 in this case. That's $425 a year. And then there's a medical payment coverage of $10,000, which is an additional $10,000 of coverage, kind of on top of the accident coverage. It was a little confusing on the forms and documents I was reading about exactly when does one cover and when does the other cover, but it's an additional $100 to get this medical payment coverage. And then finally, the hired and non-owned automobile liability coverage of up to $250,000. This is $250 to purchase it, but this should also cover anybody transporting our trailer or any other assets that we own If they're like renting a vehicle, or especially if they're renting a vehicle using our name, or if they're doing business like on our behalf, this would cover that. It would also mean that if, the trailer had an accident on the road and everything and it was destroyed, like this should potentially cover that, is what it's looking like. And then I added all of the fun excluded activities. It does, I mentioned it because there's already a couple of things that I've heard people discuss as battle games in the past. If you aren't not familiar with Knockerball, Bubble Ball, and Zorb Ball, this is one of those giant inflatable hamster balls that people can play in. This specifically does not cover that. It also does not cover horses or a few other things. But just overall, it would,
Pulling a
what I can
cart
tell, it would cover
with a
everything.
horse mask.
Yeah.
Would it cover me if I have a horse on my chest every time I fight?
I don't know.
I like that it specifies corn cannons, but not regular cannons.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure those would be just overall classified as not. I was
Oh,
trying to quickly see.
it says, I guess they might try and classify it as an explosive
Probably.
because, like, black powder isn't classified as a firearm.
Oh, that's news.
Yeah, black powder is not classified as a firearm. You can go buy a black powder pistol, rifle, whatever, if you have a felony. It doesn't even have a waiting period.
Sometimes called a pepper gun from the Gold Rush days.
I am,
clarifications will counter that claim.
I find this information redacted.
I was trying to see if I can quickly pull up the forum I was looking at. It's from the where
So
I pulled all this from anyways. Yeah,
where
it's
do we
defense
start
city.
drawing the line on? This is what the poll gets to. Where do we start drawing the line at covering our butts? Like, because at a certain point it becomes we have to have a whole freaking department or whatever that does this.
So, from my understanding, most of this information, as far as like the prices and things like that, were pulled from Francis L. Dean, which is an insurance organization that actually has a specific section of their insurance written for live action role play, which is very helpful. And I've talked to a few other kingdoms, and they use stuff like this. And reading kind of through a lot of these things, getting something like this to me reads as it would cover us for most cases that would occur if there was an accident on the field. At a minimum, we would need the event and general liability. The final options, the accident, the medical pay, and the hired and owned automobiles are all kind of optional. The directors and officers insurance, I personally would really like to see us have, because it protects the monarchy and the BoD from being held personally liable while acting on behalf of the organization. If they're not acting on behalf of the organization, say they're embezzling money, this would not cover them. But as long as they are acting in good faith, they would be covered.
I got comments about embezzling money when we're not on the recorded anymore.
Yeah, but it's very explicitly of just like this would cover them as long as they're acting in good faith and in the interest of the company. This would not cover them if they are doing selfish behavior, in which case they could still be held personally liable. So this isn't like we're on the hook if the monarch is acting out type thing and causing problems.
So you mentioned this, since one of my things in life is dealing with insurance rejects. How much hassle will it be to prove to them that it was good faith so that they'll cover it to begin with?
Yeah, and that's part of the why I decided to reach out and get additional information about this. More specifically, I found somebody and then asked our liaison to reach out, I should say. Because I wanted to get a little bit more details on exactly like what is it covering, how's it covering it, what would you have to look at, what are the costs, what are like the limitations on this, and other things like that, because of exactly those types of questions. And I'm quickly trying to find that document I sent over to you, Ginger, but I am not seeing it.
It's in your email.
Yeah, there we go. Pull that up real fast. Yeah, I can just do this. Okay, so here's the blank form on this, and just kind of going a little bit more into details about kind of what it is. Like, do we have an anti-harassment and anti-discrimination policy? Like, yes, technically our COC is kind of holds that thing. Do we have tax exempt IRS status? That's the whole 501c3 thing. Do we have general liability insurance? So like having insurance, general liability helps with our D&O insurance. Do we have a previous D&O that we're transferring from? Have we had any issues in the last several years? Things like this. And then this company would also potentially cover like fiduciary requirements to make sure. Yep. So I believe the item here, looking at what we have, is preparing this for the April Alding.
Correct. And I should have numbers to put into that hopefully by the end of the week.
Okay.
Just
So
waiting on them.
Yeah. Because I believe the end of the week actually is the deadline for an April Alding on this.
Okay.
Yeah, is that correct there, Lee?
Lee's having internet problems. I'll find
That
out.
sounds correct. I managed to find a more stable internet connection.
Perfect. Yeah, because the Alding would be the first weekend in April, which is like 5, 6. Going 2 weeks before that, 29, 22. Yep, so 21. So we should get it pulled together by the 21st. And
That's
again, this is
tomorrow.
the way this is kind of right
Or
now written
Friday.
is a non-binding poll to gauge the interest of the populace about
Right.
what they would want as far as options.
But it's good to have numbers for them because otherwise they get all cranky.
Agreed. Yeah, but if these numbers change slightly, it's still useful to have this holding and get those numbers updated. So, okay, do we have any other items to discuss about directors and officer and general liability insurance? Questions, comments, concerns?
I do have the comment concern. Like the liability insurance is separate from the D&O, correct? And we're just doing that basically for events. Also correct? Clarify.
So the way the Francis L. Dean one works, which I have closed for some reason. Where did my PDF go?
They want both because, like, us carrying our own liability insurance, where do you draw the line for events? Is a mid-range an event? Is a local park mid-range an event?
Liability insurance would cover the local park days and stuff.
So it would
Event
cover local
insurance.
parks too. So we're not just doing event liability.
So liability covers the local parks. Events covers our big events. Normally, I think they designate it based off of like an attendance type deal.
So we're looking at both.
You have to have one for the other generally.
That's how it was written.
You can get just event insurance per event.
That's what we've been doing, I'm saying.
Right.
So that's what we have been doing. What this is.
Oh, they're saying that if you want one, you have to have the other. Okay. So,
yes.
Case in point, we had a park member that dislocated their knee a couple months ago, right? We were like, oh, they signed the waiver. They're off to their own, they've got a woo box ride and everything. So if we have liability insurance, we're on the hook for that. Yeah.
I mean, we're technically potentially on the hook regardless of liability insurance.
We have a waiver saying this is a cranky game.
Waiver and what somebody wants to come back and sue afterwards are two different things. Like as was mentioned earlier, like if they go to their insurance and they're like, "Oh, what you're doing?" You'd be like, "Oh, I was at you know soccer," and they'll be like, "Oh, let's go talk to the soccer company and see if they have insurance," right? Like they're going to say the same thing potentially about Amcar and be like, "Oh, you were at a event that is run by a corporation. Let's go reach out to that corporation and see if they have insurance and see if we can pawn off some of the liability onto them."
I don't know how I feel about this.
Like it is always possible that anybody could come back and be like, "Hey, I dislocated my knee. My insurance isn't covering it because it's like a sports event, and they're saying the sports event should cover it," or and come back and like sue the corporation.
Right. And then we're in a whole freaking can of worms. Yeah. Okay. That's all my 2 cents.
Yeah.
Got to love the American healthcare industry.
Yeah. But yeah, that's why I was kind of very explicitly looking at this one, and I
And just for
believe
reference, it's not just privatized health insurance like Medicaid. They're the payer of last resort, so they will force you to file a claim or sue the place to get into try and not have to pay the bill. I did that job for a lot of years where I had to be like, no, you have to try and get this first if this was an accident.
Subrogation.
Medi-Cal calls it the payer of last resort.
yeah. Okay. So that hopefully answers your question there, Ginger.
Yeah.
Okay.
Don't like the answer, but yeah.
We've been very lucky so far that it's never
Exactly.
come up, but it's also
Exactly.
like it's one of those things that you want to have it and not need it, rather than need it and not have it.
Yeah, probably, maybe. I don't know.
Like we've never utilized our insurance for King City. In all the years we've had it, I've never heard of it getting used,
Okay.
but we're still required to have it.
That explains why they work so easy on every year.
Yeah. Okay. Moving on to the next topic, unless anybody has any holdups. The
I got
next
nothing.
topic. Oh, you got nothing. Perfect. The next topic is our 501c3 update. Is Milan still here? Milan.
Yes, sorry, I was on mute. My apologies. Yeah, we don't really have any new updates, unfortunately. I think we should check back in about 6 months,
Is that seriously what your update is, everybody?
maybe.
Okay.
No, we were approved. Westmarch is officially a 501c3 as of March. It is posted on the on the California Secretary of State website and through the IRS. It has been backdated to be active as of March. Excuse me, I apologize. May of 2024. So technically, we've almost been a C3 for a year, technically. And yeah, we have a few more stringent requirements, which is why some of us have gently nudged Royce to be treasurer. Ha ha ha. I'd like to publicly thank Sir Fix, Sir Azus, Sir Scoot, Sebastian, Sir Thistledown, Dame Rose, and Talon. So many people. I'm forgetting names and I apologize. But it's been a long process. Oh, absolutely, Bear Bear. I apologize, Sir Bear Bear. And yeah, that's it. Does anybody have any questions?
You mind if I show or share the form you sent me?
It's public.
Oh, perfect.
Congratulations. Thank you so much, Milan. Woohoo! Look at that.
Yep. It's all super fancy.
Can we have our special liaison to the IRS take some credit and post that to everybody?
Well, it's public, so there's no need to post it.
Yeah.
No, but to to share it.
You can share it with whoever you want. Yeah, you can do whatever you wish.
I'm just saying.
Huh.
If we want to show our appreciation, we have this great way where you can recommend people for awards like roses and things like that.
Oh my
I
gosh,
don't
play this.
awards.
I don't play this game for awards. That's all y'all's.
If you go to the orc,
So if everyone would like to go to Milan's page and inundate
No.
my inbox with recommendations, then we're
No.
going to make sure that Milan is there at Dark Shore, and they're going to be kneeling in front of court for a while.
Well,
There is also a lovely Google form.
Hells to the yes.
Please
No.
don't use the Google form. I love you, Milan, but the orc recommendations are so much easier to read. Please.
I'm the one who's been recommending that we do the orc over the Google form.
Oh, okay, good. I thought you were saying there is a Google form. I was like, don't say that. Don't say that.
No, that's somebody else. Seriously, guys, I don't need any award
I like the
recommendations.
Google form
Please,
better than the orc. So sorry.
please give that recommendation to all the other individuals involved, especially Bear, who drove hundreds of miles, and Sebastian and Royce, who absolutely went above and beyond.
Milan, you will take our appreciation, damn it.
All right, fine, whatever. But does anybody have any actual questions about the C3?
No questions.
So what can we do now?
Well, the number one thing that we can do, and this is important to bring up, grant writing is going to be an important thing. Now we can do outreach to organizations and individuals and ask for charitable donations. If we do that, then we can give them a tax-deductible receipt.
Correct. Also, donations that you make, you can claim as a tax deduction. Like, you know how if you take clothes to Goodwill, you can claim as a tax deduction? Well, if you donate garb to Amfguard now, you can to Westmarch, you can claim it as a tax deduction.
Absolutely. There's other things that are very important to bring up, and I've written this in emails to the powers that be, but we need to really step up our record keeping. Anybody who wants to claim a tax deduction needs to have it signed off by a power, and that power can be somebody on the board of directors, that power can be somebody in the monarchy, but somebody has to sign it, and we have to keep a record of it. Because if somebody says, oh, I donated $100,000 to Westmarch, and we don't have a record of it, then we can get audited, and that can be really bad. So there's possibility for fraud, and that's the one major issue we need to look out for. And the only way to avoid that is record keeping.
And on the other side of that, though, if they say that and we're like, nah, bro, we don't have a record of that, they can also get audited.
Absolutely. But we just never want to get looked at. That's the thing. Don't get looked at. You can get away with anything.
Yeah, very explicitly, I would like to point out that, just like to make this kind of clear, is that the Westmarch Board of Directors has the responsibility for completing any paperwork, signing contracts, anything to do with contractual obligations. I would say that, if people are making donations and things like that and are asking for receipts, that comes out of the Board of Directors. Now, that does include the monarch and the prime minister of the kingdom can also, do these sign-offs. But,
Yes.
Local monarchy can't be doing this. The regent, the champion, the GMR, like, they don't really have that same signing power from the corporate perspective.
I mean, Westmarch is right now, everybody but the regent could do it.
No, absolutely not.
No, because the GMR and the champion are on the board, is what he's saying.
Yeah.
But yeah, by default, they shouldn't.
A few years ago, when we started this, you mentioned something about Google Drives having a reduced fee for 501c3s.
Oh my goodness. Thank you, Sir Thistledown.
I was waiting for a breaking conversation to bring that up.
Which would affect the budget that we were just working on.
Yep.
Yes, as a C3, we now have an opportunity to get awesome things. Like last year, I used my personal nonprofit to get a Zoom discount. And there's lots of other discounts that are brought up by Thistledown and Talon and many other individuals. I believe Athena also brought up several things.
Yeah, so here, like Microsoft Office 365 has a whole section of reduced pricing for the Office 365, right? And so, we can get, well, that's the basic plans and things like this. But these are like all of our collaborative work tools, which would be, an option we could do. Bringing up Google. Google has a whole nonprofit for Google Workspaces. I believe Amazon AWS has one. as well for no.
Add all that to next week's or next month's agenda.
And they also have reduced prices. I forget what exactly they are.
I seem to recall that Bear and or Athena did some research a year ago on perks of us being a 501c3.
I vaguely remember that, and I don't remember any of the perks.
I'll go ahead and track down my notes and such for that too. I think part of it too is if we start taking funds, it was recommended for lawyers too. So maybe discuss that next meeting. I'm with our liaison on that note.
There's something else I'd like to briefly mention that should be disseminated, especially for stewards of events. Many organizations participate in a California law that allows 8 hours per year of paid leave to support a nonprofit organization. So if you are part of an organization or company that you work for that participates in that, once a year, you can get paid for 8 hours of LARPing as long as you help.
Yes. A lot of companies do have something like that where, they want to
Now that
encourage
we're a
people to
C3, we can actually
volunteer.
do that.
Yes. A lot of companies will also typically do around the holidays. They'll do like a donation to nonprofits, and they'll often go through a third-party company where all of they pull from the IRS registry of all nonprofits in the United States, and we would now appear on those lists. So that is another way to potentially donate to Westmarch. I know other companies do show up on those lists.
I can probably get you some fancy bricks.
What's our holdover now that we are a 501c3? That's the big concern because before, when you're not a 501c3 and you're just a volunteer nonprofit organization or whatever, you can't hold over a crap ton of funds without getting in trouble. So that's changed.
50,000.
Fuck yeah. Okay.
Which we won't hit for a couple years.
What's it mean to hold over funds?
Yeah, like
Cash
we
we
might
have.
if we start doing grants and stuff and taking donations because it'd be
If
great
we get a
to get
$30,000 grant, we can afford to hire a professional tax preparation person.
Yes, we can. You are correct.
Or I'm actually allowed to do it for free for the for this
Aw.
because I'm a member of the board.
So sweet. Thank you.
You better take your 8 hours of pay then if you're doing
I
that.
don't get it. As a
Yeah.
state employee, I'm not
State.
eligible to it.
See, but him volunteering, that's the other reason why he wants D&O insurance, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
I motion to close this topic.
Okay.
I hear nothing, so second.
Not until you take a bow.
They did. We just can't see their webcam. Okay. Follow up on Ethereal Hollow and Stonehearth contracts, which is our next item here. So it came up last board of directors meeting that Ethereal Hollow and Stonehearth have updated their names, and the contracts are with the previous entity names. So I reached out to Ethereal Hollow and Stonehearth last month. Ethereal Hollow turned around the form, like the contract, and sent it back to me immediately, like within 3 hours. I passed it along to you, the lovely board of directors, because we need signatures from basically everybody on the board so we can finalize that. It is in your chat. Please, somebody download it, sign it, and then re-upload it. Because at the time, we didn't have access to a way to sign online because Adobe is silly. But hey, maybe now we're a 501c3 and we can look into that. We didn't have a corporate account. I haven't heard anything from Stonehearth. I'll reach out again to their monarch.
By the way, a question on that. So you reached out to Etah, was it?
That is correct.
Okay, I'm gonna bug his ass. Bro, what the hell?
Yeah. Basically, it's the monarch and the PM of the land just need to sign saying yes, with the new name of the land, and that way we can just throw it into our folder that we keep all the contracts just to say, these people are this land is more or less operating on behalf of us. So that's the follow-up on that. Shall we close this topic?
Seconded.
Hey, perfect. Next item are the 2024 taxes. This is just me reminding Royce, hey, Royce, do our taxes.
Yep.
Okay, perfect.
Now that the C3 stuff is done, I can go file the required Secretary of State paperwork, and then I can do our taxes.
Huzzah! Okay, thank you. That was the entirety of that topic, unless anybody has anything else they want to talk about taxes about. Okay. I'm going to move on to the next topic unless there's any objections. Okay, item number 9. Should Westmarch have an emergency management plan? This is a follow-up. We previously said we don't care as a board of directors. We don't think that this is a necessary step. Milan wants to do it anyways. This is me reminding Milan every month. Looks like Milan left. Perfect. I've reminded Milan. Do we have any walk-on items for today? No. Okay. Now let's look at the most important topic of this meeting. When are we going to have our next meeting? This is the calendar for April.
So it is possibly easier for our kingdom prime minister, since they do have to be present for all of these as well. Do weekends work for people?
They do for me, at least.
Absolutely
I do
not.
3 amp card events a weekend. So,
If we do a weekend, I have like very specific times I'm available.
yeah.
Looks like that's not on the table then.
Yeah, same here. I'm not available coming up.
Right. Are Wednesdays still the best for people going forward?
Weekdays are doable for me.
Wednesday works for me.
I can make most
Wednesdays-
anything work.
Wednesday height is good.
So hey, Athena, I was
Hmm.
just about to say one thing I was just going to mention now thinking about it. Darkshore, typically the board of directors has a discussion with Darkshore people to make sure that they've got everything they need, if they need anything for us to sign or, insurance and things like that. We haven't heard anything.
Hmm.
So in that discussion so much as when we should schedule the meeting. So typically we've scheduled our meeting 2 to 3 weeks before the event. So that way we can close out any final paperwork that might need to be signed.
That sounds good. So I would indeed prefer us next meeting to be before the 16th if we can possibly. So like maybe on the 16th or the 9th.
I'm not opposed to the 16th, and then that also makes it so if any of our individuals here are cross gamers, because there is a what is it? The Belagarth event is starting, I think, on the 24th. So then people aren't stressing about that.
Yeah, I think that might be a necessary walk-on item for just Darkshore review for the next meeting.
I can add it as an item for the next meeting. So potentially the 16th at
6:30 has been good.
6:30 p.m.
Also, I know we did an impromptu one over text, but did we ever actually do a roll call at the beginning of the meeting?
Negative.
We did not, but we were going so smoothly. I didn't interrupt.
I did a roll call based upon who was actually logged into the Zoom.
Fair.
I can see all your names. And everybody happily, put their names in there, so I was able to fill it all out.
Yeah, I'm on my work
I also
one.
did attendance technically before we recorded, so I consent to president's attendance.
Perfect. Discuss Darkshore, not Westmarch.
So it's the 16th, the day.
Does anybody have any objections to the 16th?
16th is fine by me.
I do.
16th is good.
16th is good.
Okay, cool.
Should be good.
Do we want to make this an official vote, or are we all just going to nod and say the 16th looks right?
No objections?
Smile and wave.
Perfect.
No objection.
No
Thank
objections
you.
noted.
Perfect. Thank you very much. No objections. The date. And then Athena, did you want to have a brief discussion here about Darkshore in this BoD meeting, or did you want to do that at the next meeting?
I think it would be more so like, what do you want to know? On my end, there's a odd split of the responsibilities when it comes to the actual reservation and the insurance. Ita has handled that piece, and so I'm gonna have to double check with him. But when it comes to most everything else and like about the event day-to-day items, that's me. So if you have questions, I can either answer them or make a note and we can present it with the next one.
I mean, it's mostly just like the things we've encountered in the past is like getting the insurance to, done, getting the contract in place with King City because they like to fight us every year about, exactly what's happening. So I just wanted to make sure like stuff like that's going smoothly, or do you need us to come in with a little bit more, power behind it and help back you up on something?
So I'm fairly sure that one, the reservation has been completed, and then two, that the insurance I was told in passing that it was handled, and I'm going to have to double check now because that's important. And otherwise, I'll just have to check if there's anything else that we would need from the BoD or for assistance on. And for the items such as like alcohol or the stone bathrooms and things like that, basically Ita has a direct point of contact who's a bit more relaxed about these things. Alcohol policy is posted on the website FAQs, where officially speaking, no alcohol is allowed outside of the picnic area. It can be served just fine from the Red Dragon, and people can drink there, but everywhere else, we don't know anything about that, and that should not be in plain view.
Okay. The reason this came up is because last Dark Shore, a park ranger came over and asked us about it.
Yeah, I believe that was, park rangers have come by various times, and I think it's more so from the RV folks calling about like what's wrong, what's going on. So we would just have to be mindful of, hey, everyone's aware of what the rule is, which is generally just, hey, try to have this tucked away. And then the only problem I can foresee is if like park staff comes by and they're snooping and they're like, wait a second, you have alcohol, dump that out, which they've never done in the past.
Okay. So, but overall, it sounds like from what you can, tell right now, the BoD doesn't have to do anything and everything kind of runs smoothly, and you'll let us
Yeah.
know if otherwise.
Yeah, I'm checking with Ita right now about the other things of, hey, you said this was good, we're good, right? And I will update in the chats with Discord and Facebook about like, yeah, confirmed.
Okay. Sounds good. I think that addresses my immediate question. Just wanted to make sure there wasn't anything. As far as the problem, I think at this point we can close the meeting unless there's any objections.
Nope, but I did give you the link for next meeting.
And I have added that to our meeting notes.
Until Westmarch gets its own Zoom.
Yep, sounds good. I'm going to stop recording.